Hey, thanks for joining me, and if you're coming in, catching the replay, I'm really glad that you are here and that you were able to catch me at least afterwards. So today I just wanted to kind of touch on, as the title suggests, my battle against perfectionism, and then how that has related to like some new things that are coming up for me. So that's where we'll start. All right, so for me, perfectionism has always been like getting good grades, like not even just like B's or A's, like getting that like A plus, that 100%, or even going beyond and getting that extra credit. And that's always been a battle. I mean, I got A's, but I didn't always get that like 110%. And then, and it's kind of permeated then into like other areas of my life. Like, I wasn't going to talk about these new things that are coming up because they aren't fully there yet, right? Or I'm not at a place where I can be like, yeah, I've mastered this is great, like, almost like an ego trip kind of thing in some ways, but being able to stand on the other side and be like, yeah, I was there, rather than like, this is what I'm going through and this is the process, which is very important because we should honor where we are at, and we're human beings, so we're never really going to reach that perfect standpoint where we can be like, now I'm here and now I can finally do those things, or now I'm here and I can finally talk about things, or that kind of thing. We're never going to be perfect. We're never going to reach that point. That's just how it is. There's always going to be things either within, like, that are within us or that are without us, and not in our control, that, you know, will just kind of be a part of the process. So that's kind of been a little bit of my battle with perfectionism. It's been really hard because then you get into procrastinating, the other P word. So procrastinating and kind of putting off doing things because it's not going to be perfect, or because it's not perfect in the sense of how I want it to be, right? Since that's kind of in the eye of the beholder kind of thing. And that's also kind of been part of like putting off talking about these new things that are coming up for me, and not wanting to kind of ruin and honor like the process, but on the other hand, like also not wanting to talk about it because it's not perfect. It's not like pristine. It's not nice and neat and organized and all together, and the possibility that like I could be wrong kind of thing comes up too with being battling that perfectionism, like having to always be right. And that kind of goes back to like getting A's and A pluses and that 110%, like you have to be right in order to get the grade, since mostly grades are they're kind of based on if you got it right or you got it wrong, not like, well, you tried or you were getting there kind of thing. So that I have to be right, and there's not this gray area in the middle of like, well, sometimes there's not like a right or a wrong, or there's not like a right answer or not right answers, right? So kind of that too. So like, maybe this isn't exactly what's coming out. Maybe it changes or evolves, or like maybe it doesn't go any further than this. So kind of procrastinating and not wanting to talk about it because it's not there yet, or it's not up to standard, or kind of thing, because we put these high standards on us and what we believe that we should be achieving, and we don't account for things like that. We're human beings living in a world kind of thing. So I just want to point out, this is my my beach float or pool floaty. So yay! You don't see that, it's a nice backdrop. So yeah, so let me get back on track here now that I was distracted. I kept singing in the background. I'm like, it's so pretty, I love it. Yeah, so part of that is not wanting to be wrong, because wrong is bad and getting things right is good, and we're rewarded for that, right? And this isn't to say, this isn't a conversation on like changing how we reward systems or how schools operate or that kind of thing. Like, not a conversation on that. This is just how my experiences and how they've kind of come out through me in other ways. So I just want to put that out there. And it's not like to blame anybody or to like say, oh yeah, this is why I'm like this, but it's an amalgamation of things that have come together and kind of changed how I look at the world and how I interact with the world. And it's repeated things over time because that's how we learn. So it's not even to say any of that, it's just kind of me taking a step towards battling that perfectionism and getting it out and saying, here it is, even though it's imperfect and it's not complete, kind of thing. So that's really the main purpose here. All right. So this kind of comes into the new things that I'm, what's the word? I'm not battling with or grappling with, or even learning, but discovering, maybe new things I'm discovering. See, there's like that perfectionism there. I have to pick the exact right word, or else like it's not perfect, it's not good, not good enough. So, but some of that is also like you kind of have to understand what I'm talking about. So we won't dive in too much there. But so there's these new things that I've kind of been discovering and I wanted to share, but have not wanted to talk about yet, or just wanted to talk about like in private because of that perfectionism and not wanting to share in case I could be wrong, or like it doesn't turn out the way I'm thinking it will, or that kind of thing. So I'm doing it. So that's one of the things you just gotta do, is just gotta do the darn thing and kind of see where it takes you. So in Reiki sessions over the last couple of months, maybe, yeah, something like that. We'll say the last couple of months, and particularly more so recently, it has there have been instances of diving into past lives, which has been probably going on a lot longer than the past few months, maybe the last year or so. And I finally kind of started to advertise that in my Reiki sessions, like, hey, these are things that we can dive into. And you can see like I have a past life healing, which includes like a reading and a Reiki session. So I offer that. So, but that's just been coming up more in individual Reiki sessions as separate from the package. So looking at blockages that are rooted in past lives, or emotions and things from past lives that are kind of still filtering through and that need to be worked through finally in order to kind of move through or progress through one's path. So that's one thing. There's also, so with that has been like reincarnation and actually seeing somebody kind of go through that reincarnation process, not as like a current thing, like they passed and now they're going through reincarnation, but rather seeing it as it had happened previously. So not a current, but a past thing, kind of, so that relates to the past lives there, and seeing that happen. So that was really cool. But more recently has been actually seeing like future events and seeing like glimpses of them. So it's not even like a full-blown picture, but like this thing is coming up and it might be in the next X number of months or X time frame, and then working through that with an individual and diving into it more. So there's been a lot more actually diving into those events and pulling things out. And so in one instance, I had somebody who was going to be moving and was looking for a place to live. And so we Reiki'd the situation around like looking for a place to live. And I saw this this apartment. That's what it looked like. It didn't look like a home. It didn't like, or a house. It didn't, maybe like a small condo, but it was like an apartment and its layout. So like this is where this is and this is where that is. and seeing like a hallway with like a sign and that kind of thing. So seeing this apartment, right, while this person was searching for a new place to live and kind of struggling with it. And then we didn't really touch on it much after that. And they were like, I got a place. And I was like, great. And then a couple months later, they were like, because I've been working with this individual, so maybe not a couple months, maybe like a couple weeks. I've been working with this individual over a span of time. And they were like, you know what? Thinking about that Reiki session we had about finding a place has really come to mind again lately, and the way you described it looks like the place I have now. So that was one instance, and I was like, oh, all right. So like it was kind of a weird, like, this is what it looks like at the time, and then kind of forgetting about it, and then being brought back to it and being like, all right, yeah, that was like pretty correct. And then having another session recently where I was Reikiing like a connection, basically, and I was seeing a room, and there were certain things in the room, at least placement of things, and so like the placement of a particular object was actually how it was. So this wasn't a future event, but this was actually how it was currently, and actually placing that item in that spot in their current home. So there's some like kind of cool stuff coming up with that, which I would kind of term a little bit less as intuitive abilities, more as like psychic abilities, which there's not really like a great distinction between the two, like a nice solid line where you're like, that's it. It's more like this kind of wibbly wobbly place. So yeah, so I wanted to kind of talk about those things because I'm really excited about it, and I've wanted to talk to people about it. But two, also because of this battle with perfectionism that I can't, not that I can't share it, but that like I feel like I can't share these things, at least not on like a scale like this, or like talking with people outside of like very private personal conversations. And even then being like, oh, I don't know, do I even want to say this kind of thing? So really to combat that within myself, so also taking this step, because it's really important that we continue to work through these kinds of things. At least I think it's very important to do that. And it can be really hard because there's so much wrapped up in like, for example, in perfectionism. And as I was talking, like, there was, getting good grades in school. There's this procrastination point where, like, I don't do things and I put things off until, like, I feel the pressure to actually do them, because otherwise, because the need for perfection kind of creates this procrastination, but then the procrastination makes me pressured enough to actually do the thing, even though it's not going to be perfect. So kind of using that as like a motivation. And then taking that even a step further, in that, like, I don't want to talk about things, or I don't want to share things until, like, I know for sure, or I know it's right, or I know it's true. And because I don't want to come off as like not smart or not knowing or not perfect, essentially, is what it all comes down to, is not being that like perfect or that good enough kind of thing. Well, not really good enough, because that like means that like there's a level that you can hit and everything after that is good. But with perfectionism, it's more like you have to hit this like absolute point. So yeah, so I wanted to come on and just kind of talk about that real quick. And hopefully that resonates a little bit for you, and you can relate to this kind of need for perfectionism. I believe there's a lot of people out there who deal with this, partially because of the amalgamation of things in the world, but also because of we're humans, and if we're striving to be perfect but we can never get there, it almost becomes like this obsession. So I believe it's kind of in that nature a little bit. That it's like not that it would always happen, but what's the word? A propensity for it, or like a leaning towards it already or something like that. So yeah, having that kind of all together, I know I'm not the only one who deals with it. I might be the only one who kind of deals with it in like my particular way, but we all kind of, not all of us, but a lot of us probably deal with it in very similar ways, or are trying to combat very similar aspects of it. So, and yeah, and then just kind of tying that back into the things that I'm learning and the things that I'm delving into a little bit more about myself and what I can do. So, and if you want to kind of explore this with me and get a Reiki session, I'm totally open for that. It's shelbymelissa.com/Reiki. You can get individual sessions, or you can get packages now. So I have packages where you can get a set number of sessions and you get like a time span. So it's X number of sessions over like X amount of time. So you get in one package, which is the maintenance package, you get 2 hour-long sessions over a 2-month period. So it's basically like 1 session a month. Or in the intensive package, which is like the intensive package, is the most intense, you get the most amount of sessions over the shortest span of time. That is 6 sessions over a month and a half. So it's weekly sessions. So you can kind of tailor it to what you need in your circumstances, but I think the maintenance package is probably a really good one if you wanted to dive into this a little bit without getting super intense. You can get 1 session a month, and then you can kind of look at it as like it's a good gauge, it's a good spaced out time span where you can be like, we do one, and you can have time to look at the results, and we have time to talk about it, and then you can schedule your next one, and then we have time again to kind of talk and confer. So I think it's really nice that way, and it's almost like a good experiment kind of package too if you're newer to Reiki. I do have 2 individual sessions. I have an hour long and a half hour. So if you're really new and you're really unsure and you don't want to make quite that investment, you can always get one of those as well. So yeah, I just wanted to come on and push myself a little bit and hopefully encourage you to do the same thing, and taking those steps to kind of combat maybe what you're working on or what you're battling through a little bit, whether it be depression, anxiety, perfectionism, what have you. So yeah, that was it. I hope you're having a great day, and I want to thank you for tuning in, and if you are watching the replay, I want to thank you for coming back and watching the replay. And that's it. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk soon.